This is great. Here's a question. All right, I'm going to give everybody in this room the Democratic playbook, and I want you to tell this audience how you're going to deal with this. Republicans are racist, sexist, homophobic. They want to poison the air and water. They want to kill children. And every grandmother in the country in a wheelchair, Paul Ryan and Ted Cruz, wants to throw over a cliff. How do you deal with the predictable lies that are coming?
Well, you know, there is this psychological term Freud talked about called projection. Let's go through each of those. Racist. The Democratic Party is unwilling to say the words, all lives matter. When did it become controversial to say every human being is a precious gift from God and we value everybody? And by the way, you want to talk about Black Lives Mattering. You know, in 1990, there were 2,200 homicides in New York City. Last year, there were 300. That is over 2,000 a year, roughly 2,000 a year. Murders that were prevented by the brave men and women of the NYPD. You want to talk about thousands of black lives that have been saved because of the bravery of our police officers. And all lives matter, but let me tell you, blue lives matter. And we stand with the men and women who protect us.
So I take from your answer, you go and fight, and you make the case.
You take the case right to them. Listen, I got to tell you, I cannot wait to stand on that general election debate stage with Hillary Clinton. She will inevitably stand up and, like Barack Obama, prattle on about income inequality. And I'll be ready to say, Secretary Clinton, I'm very glad you raised that, because it's increased dramatically under your policies. You know, Sean, I'll actually say a sentence that I suspect has never before been said at CPAC.
Oh, boy.
I'm not Donald Trump, so it won't be X-rated. I agree with Bernie Sanders. Listen, Bernie Sanders talks all the time about
the liberal media is back there. That's going to be the quote of the day. Go ahead.
Bernie Sanders talks all the time about the corruption in Washington, how career politicians in both parties get in bed with the giant corporations, with the lobbyists and special interests, and how the game is rigged. Bernie's right. When he's defining the problem, he is exactly right that Washington is fundamentally corrupt. Here's where I disagree with Bernie. If the problem is government's corrupt, then the answer ain't, let's have a whole bunch more government.
You know, Senator, one of the reasons I love coming back to CPAC every year, and you referenced it earlier, is that there are so many young people here. They are our future. I know, and I'm not trying to be repetitive, I've asked you this question before, but I want to go through it because this is how profound and deep the problems are right now. You know, you got kids, they graduate school, they got to go home and live with mom and dad.
Yep.
94.5 million of our fellow citizens are out of the labor force, millions more than when Barack Obama became president. 50 million Americans in poverty, millions more than when Obama became president. 46 million Americans are on food stamps. We now have doubled the national debt. We have 120 trillion in unfunded liability. The last 7 years, median income has gone down. And my question is, for all these young people that want a home and a job and a career and a future and a ladder up, how fast can you help them if you become president?
We can turn things around overnight. Listen, young people are told this is as good as it gets. Accept stagnation, accept misery, accept coming out of school drowning in student loans with no hope of a good job. malaise. We've heard that before. Democrats say that. Jimmy Carter told us this is as good as it gets, and history teaches that is an utter lie. Let me tell you how, as conservatives, we get young people. There's both substance and style. On substance, if you sat down and tried to design an agenda to hammer the living daylights out of young people, it would be hard to come up with a more effective agenda than the Obama economic agenda. For 7 years, young people come out of school with stagnation and can't find jobs. Obamacare is a massive wealth transfer from young, healthy people to everybody else. And $18 trillion in national debt. Who the heck do you think is going to pay for that? We got to go and make the case. Look, it is like, for young people, your parents went to Vegas, took out a credit card in your name, partied it up, and stuck you with a bill. And I'll tell you an interesting thing the media hadn't reported. We've had 15 states so far. Many of them didn't have exit polls, but of the one that did have exit polls, our campaign won young people in the state of Iowa. We won young people in the state of South Carolina. We won young people in the state of Oklahoma. We won young people in the state of Arkansas. And we won young people in the great state of Texas.
There might be something that you and Donald Trump can put together. We have evil in our...
I'm terrified.
It might work out. You might like this. Because ISIS is evil in our time. You agree? I think everybody in this audience understands the evil that we face, and for this generation coming out, we have got to stop this evil in its tracks. You have stated that you think we should carpet bomb the Islamic State, which, by the way, is Islamic, President Obama, and he has said we should bomb the living out of them. I'm thinking maybe we should carpet bomb the living out of them, and I think it's the perfect plan. Is that okay? You get along with Trump on that?
Listen, every militant on the face of the planet, if they go and join ISIS, if they wage jihad against the United States of America, they are going to understand that they are signing their death warrant. And you know, it's interesting. A lot of people in the media characterize strength against our enemies as somehow being a warmonger. I think it's exactly the opposite. I believe, like Ronald Reagan, in peace through strength. I actually think the weakness of Barack Obama invites military conflict. It encourages our enemy. And let me point out that the nation of Iran in 1981 released our hostages the day Ronald Reagan was sworn into office. That's the difference a strong commander-in-chief can make, because the Ayatollah Khomeini realized this Reagan wasn't Jimmy Carter. He wasn't wringing his hands in fear. He wasn't bluffing. Well, let me tell you, Sean, I don't bluff either. And when your enemies understand that, more often than not, you don't need to use military power. You know, the biggest country Ronald Reagan invaded in 8 years was Grenada. That's what happens when America is strong and your enemies understand it. And we can have that again. That is who we are. And I want to finally say to everyone here, I ask you to stand with us. This is a grassroots army. Washington, D.C., the establishment, is terrified of everyone gathered here. But if we come together right now, if we unite, we will win this primary. We will defeat Hillary Clinton in November. And we will turn this country around. And I have spent my entire life fighting to defend the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And I give you my solemn promise that when I take that oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, that I will faithfully execute that oath every single day in office.